They call themselves anonymous. They are hackers on steroids.
Like an internet hate machine. Their name comes from their secret websites.
4chan.
They
The
are
infamous
hackers
anonymous
on
image board,
steroids.
otherwise known as the bottomless well of degeneracy, memes, unfiltered discussions, and shitposting. A lot of shitposting. Given its often unfavorable reputation, it can be hard to imagine associating any word synonymous with good or wholesome to come from such a place, but every so often there comes a story of some incredible collective feats originating from there, and even more unusually, it can sometimes serve as a platform for people to come together to create something extraordinary. This is one of those times. A story that started with a single image from, of all places, a hentai doujinshi. What follows would be a series of chaotic and improbable events spanning years that would lead to one of the most incredible projects to see the light of day. Because not only were a group of strangers able to band together to complete a monumentally large project that would take years to produce, but even more improbable is that it resulted in one of the greatest visual novels to ever come out of the Western anime community. This is the story of the time.
I mean, I don't think there's been a lot of like Western visual novels, except maybe recently with the indie boom. But back then, I think it was the only one almost.
4chan made an eroge that blew everyone's expectations away. This is the story of 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙩𝙖𝙞 Shoujo.
Not a very high bar to pass. Yeah, that's what I'd say too. But to be fair, it was genuinely good.
But
I
before we
did
get on that,
genuinely
I wanted to talk
like
about
𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙩𝙖
today's
Shoujo.
sponsor. Boxu is my favorite Japanese snack box that sources rare snacks from all over Japan, partnering
Like,
with family businesses.
no
to create
kidding.
signature
I've
treats you can't
been
find
I've
anywhere
been
else.
considering
Now, if you've
playing
been
it
living in
again.
Japan
Like I
like me, one
actually
of my
have it
favorite
installed, I
things about
think.
Japan is, of course, their food
Let me
culture,
double
which
check.
absolutely applies to the awesome
I can
snacks
double
that they
check.
have. And if
Pretty
you
sure I
don't
have
want to
it.
try any of them, Boxu's got you
Yeah, I
covered.
have it
Each box
installed.
is completely packed
I haven't
with Japanese
booted it
snacks
up
and also
though.
comes with a little booklet that teaches you all about the snacks,
Been
unique
too
flavors, and where
lazy
they
to
come from.
read.
This month, if you're in America, you may be preparing for Halloween, but in Japan we have Autumn Koyo, which is the beautiful season where we get to see all the leaves change to their beautiful fall colors. And all the snacks I have here perfectly match the mood of the theme we're going for here. I'm gonna try this yuzu cake for myself. Now, I'm very excited for this because I am a fiend for yuzu. I love yuzu flavored things. Oh, that tastes so refreshing. God, I love yuzu. Oh. We also have mochi oranges. Now, unlike another certain someone, I absolutely love oranges and orange flavored stuff. So let's give this a shot. That's cute. They're almost shaped like orange segments.
You guys had Japanese snacks?
Give me both of them. How can you
Really
hate
want to
oranges?
go. They
So, what are
they
you
recently
waiting
just
for? If you wanna
lifted
try out some
the
premium Japanese snacks
requirements
today,
to
go
get
the link
in.
in the description and use code Gigguk15 for $15 off your first box.
If you're coming from some
Thank
parts
you
of the
very much
world,
to
like you
Boxy
don't need a
for sponsoring me
visa
today.
to
Back to the video. Before the
have a
gold rush
vacation.
of Steam anime-themed visual novels, before
Yeah, there's a lot of
Tokyo
garbage
Fiction
now.
Club, before Honey Pop, there was 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙩𝙖𝙀 Shoujo. Released in 2012, 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙀𝙀 Shoujo, which roughly translates into Disability Girls, is a visual novel dating sim that tells the story of 5 high school girls living with various disabilities who you get to romance. And who knows, maybe eventually get a bit of sexy time with. Yeah, I know. Given the very sensitive subject matter and given the place it originated from, it's easy to expect nothing less than a tasteless disaster that would go down in infamy in the bowels of the internet, and yet...
Yeah, it was coming out from 4chan, so people were expecting just a bunch of like degenerate garbage. Especially with this subject matter and like talking about like like people were speculating like a lot of like stupid accidents and stuff, like with that meme with the truck or something. And a whole lot of like other garbage. But
Anyone who's played this will know
it
that
didn't
was a
turn out the
wholesome,
way that people were
inspirational
expecting it
story
to.
that has touched the hearts of many and is still very, very loved to this day. Even now, I've seen countless people talk about how 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙀𝙀 Shoujo touched their lives and sometimes even changed it in some way. But one thing that I find just as incredible as the story of the game itself is the story of how this project got made. This isn't some small game. It is a full visual novel with 30 plus hours of content complete with CGs, music, and animation that took a team of amateur developers years to make and was released for absolutely free. This was before the era of the Steam visual novel boom, before Kickstarter projects, before easily accessible visual novels in general. Just a group of strangers working without pay for years on a project that might never had been finished. The more I think about this project, the more it blows my mind that not only was something like this seen to completion, but also turned out as incredible as it was. How did such a project get completed, where so many other smaller games, indie titles, and Kickstarters with proper funding faltered, forgotten about, never to see the light of day? To see the roots of where this all started, we need to go back much earlier, to a simpler time of the internet.
Oh god. Seeing that, seeing the screenshot takes me way back to when I was like crawling through Newgrounds looking for stuff like this, because I've never played anything like it before. And I think I spent like a month playing nothing but like dating simulators on Newgrounds before before I grew out of it. And then in high school I came right back in with actual visual novels. But jeez, this really sets me back. Holy crap. Some of those were pretty good though.
For those of you who aren't me and actually go out and enjoy life, visual novels are an interactive story-driven video game that are more often than not displayed with an anime-esque art style. In fact, visual novels originated from Japan itself and still arguably
some of them were good, but most of them were pretty
PC games that are released from there.
Degenerate,
Some visual
I'd
novels
say.
also double as a dating sim, where at least one of the main goals involves the player trying to romance one or multiple characters through the interactive narrative. Or as I like to call it, a touch grass simulator. As the player, it's your job to make choices that
oh god, I played this one too. It was awful. This one's, what's the name? Amnesia. Yeah, I tried playing it because I had a friend who was really into otoge, and she recommended this one to me, and I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And then I read everything, and it was really bad. I mean, the boys were really cute, but you can't defend it. It's just straight up bad. Like one of them like kidnaps you and then it's like treats you like a dog or something. Cause like apparently you're a danger to yourself or some weird shit, and that the other boys can like they can't resist you basically, and then he's like, no, none of them can have you, so I'll just cage you at home. And it's like, yeah, okay. I'm not gonna fall for the I'm not gonna fall for the Stockholm syndrome bait. I can't. It's impossible. Like he was I think it was the guy with the red hair, and I'll be honest, like he was probably like the most attractive to me out of all of the other dudes, but what he does in his route, no.
Or every choice you make potentially branches off into a different storyline with multiple endings.
Like, I played a lot, you guys, like a lot. Let me just name a few. I've played the original Fate, which had like 60-70 hours of reading. I played the other one, 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙖𝙞, which is also just as long. I read some of Key. I forget the name. I think I read Rewrite, but that game broke and I couldn't finish it. And then I also read I think I read some of 𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙞. Yeah, I finished the first game of 𝙃𝙚𝙖𝙞, and then there was like a few more. I think I've played like maybe 10 total. Like at least 5, including Amnesia here. But yeah, I played a fuck ton back when I was in high school. It was crazy. Like I did nothing but read visual novels in high school. But anyway,
some visual novels are pure romances. Some are
I had a problem.
science fiction stories,
I had a
and
problem.
Some of them were porn. Like a lot of them.
Yeah.
A lot of them were. And still are. Some big games that are basically visual novels are franchises like Phoenix Wright and the Danganronpa series, but some others you may have heard of are things like Steins Gate, Clannad, and what does this say?
I tried reading Steins Gate. It was so boring. I could not get past the first 2 hours of Steins Gate. It was so boring. I'm sorry.
Stay
I even tried watching the anime. It was still boring.
However, back in the day, it was really hard to get a hold of any of these copies unless you actually lived in Japan. There was no visual novels on Steam, none on Marketplace, there was hardly even any official translations. So, a lot of the weebs during those early days of the internet...
Besides, big brain animes from the same people that made Monogatari? You mean the anime? I mean, yeah, but the lead artist for Grisaya is the same lead artist for Monogatari. You got that right. But as for the anime, I'm not sure because I didn't watch the anime for Grisaya. I only read the visual novel, and how do you say that? Only like 3 of the maybe 5 routes of Grisaya were good to me. The other 2 were like whack. I like the what was her name? I like Michiru's. I like the red-haired girl, and I like the girl with the long black hair. Those were good, but the one with the maid and the loli were awful. I hated those.
To try and spread the love through fan translations of pre-existing Japanese visual novels. I know this is gonna sound absolutely alien to anyone below the age of like fucking 25 or something, but getting visual novels back then was a Navy SEALs level operation of difficulty. You had to go on some dodgy website and download 50 separate .rar files individually on the slowest internet that you can only do 1 at a time, of which...
Yeah, I remember like these would be like bandwidth locked to like 30 kilobytes per second, and you'd have to you'd have to leave your computer running for a week, and these would be like hosted on like file sites where you can only download one thing at a time, and so you would take like a week trying to get every part one by one and praying to God that it doesn't like crash in the middle of downloading, because you would have to start all over again from that part, and it was a time for sure. I did not enjoy those, but yeah, I completely forgot about that. That was crazy. I mean, there are still I'm pretty sure some of these websites are still around, but oh my god, I still remember like because like these websites were awful, and they'd be like riddled with like a bunch of ads, and even if you had like and even if you had an ad blocker, they would still like manage to find a way to like give you a pop-up, or like on the screen, like there would be like 5 download buttons, and you'd have to like find which one was the real one, and it was just crazy. But anyway.
Allow you to download like 5 files.
Oh, and yeah, and some of them would be like, oh, you have like a 2-hour cooldown, and it's like, oh, come on, please. I just want to get this done. But anyway, I think that was like, yeah, that was probably like the biggest reason as to why I stopped playing visual novels. But anyway,
Day, so you
what
kind of
is
just praying to God that
happening?
you're not just downloading these files for multiple days, only to get
Wait one sec. Let me fix my capture. There we go.
And find that the link is broken, and you're gonna have to find some other website and start all over again. Sorry, I'm getting some Vietnam flashbacks right now. But through this, a whole culture of parody visual novels were formed, because any old weeb could stick together the most janky-ass flash game dating sim and upload it. I know there must have been a few of you out there that discovered that shitty Ava dating sim and the Love Hina visual novel back in the day.
I played both. I played both.
Girl, Frank's Adventure, and just having your world opened as a horny, hormonal teenage anime fan. If you do, please make yourself known.
I played that Frank's Adventure one too.
Thinking back to the fan-made bootleg dating sims of the mid-2000s feels like a fucking fever dream. But all this was the landscape of the community at the time, because let's be real, we were fucking weebs, and a lot of us had that same cringy dream of wanting to make our own anime one day, and visual novels were kind of the closest we could ever get to that with the resources we had. So while I can't exactly explain why the collective of 4chan's anime board
They
would
were
jump
probably
on the
cheaper
idea
to
of
make
creating a
too.
visual novel, it's very possible that this would have sown the seeds of interest for many on that board to want to make their own. Though for the origin of the disabled girl dating sim idea itself, we need to go back even further. Sometimes
It's like, if I recall correctly, like a bunch of the visual novels that I played back then and were popular were made by college circles. And what a college circle is in Japan is it's basically like a club, but they just, you know, hang around and do stuff. Some of them made visual novels. Some of them tried to make games. There's a bunch of games on Steam that are made by some of these circles. Some of them also make doujins and stuff, and then they would sell them in Comic and yeah, and a bunch of them were doing pretty well off of that. And I think there was some of them that just went off to actually become companies. If I recall correctly, I think Type Moon is one of those. I could be wrong though, but yeah, I think Type Moon was a college circle. Like I think the one that they made when they were still a circle was probably, I think both Tsukihime and Fate Stay Night were from when they were still like really indie and small. But look at them now, making so much money off of a Grand Order. But damn.
Out at any time in a place you wouldn't expect. And for Katawa Shoujo, that would come in the form of a bloody Miyazaki film. Nazca Valley of the Wind is a classic anime film that's been credited for being the origin of Studio Ghibli itself. But we're not here to talk about the 1984 Miyazaki classic or even its original manga.
A
We're
doujin?
here to talk about its hentai.
Oh boy.
In December of the year 2000, the doujin circle Zettai Shoujo released the Nazca of the Valley of the Wind doujin called Shupen Harnish. Really hope I pronounced that one correctly. The doujin would center around the character Kushana, who, in the world of Nazca, is a princess who's had 2 of her legs and 1 of her arms amputated. Cause everyone loves that amputee tag, right guys?
Hey yo, what the fuck?
The main body of the doujin itself isn't too important, as it's just a standard doujin doing doujin things.
Nice.
But what's really important here is that the artist who went by writer would include some extra omake pages.
What?
Japanese.
Motherfucker, do you speak it?
And on one particular page, there would
Okay.
include concept art for a
I pronounced
dating
Comic
sim
It wrong.
featuring disabled girls that he dubbed Katawa Shoujo. There was a deaf girl who was a class president type, an armless girl who would hold up her chopsticks with her feet, one had no legs, one had severe burn scars, and the last one was blind. It was all just very basic ideas with not much to work with, and I'm sure a writer himself had no idea how important this single page would one day
Then writer's
become.
still around?
The real event that would set this idea in motion, however, would come a whole 6 years later, where, for some unknown reason, a fan would choose to color and translate this page and this page alone, unknowingly putting the final piece in place for this idea to take center stage on a board full of eager, degenerate weebs. It was the one page from a hentai manga that started an avalanche. On
Damn.
the 4th of January
Huh,
2007,
I didn't expect that.
writers translated Omake page
Dirty bastard, you've done it again!
That is pretty random.
onto 4chan's anime board, and they went crazy. Hundreds of individual ideas, sketches, and concepts were thrown out there and discussed what this dating sim would actually be like if it were real. Thread after thread after thread was created and filled before another one would pop up almost immediately to repeat the exact same cycle. I nominate Burns-chan for Resident Tsundere. Are you stupid? Burn-Face-Tan isn't Tsundere. She's shy, reclusive, and so moe I'm gonna die.
If I was deaf, I would run around screaming like a dying giraffe. That would be fun.
You guys have created a game A can relate to. Congratulations. Enjoy your new status. It got so popular that a mod actually had to pin one of the threads, which for a site that is all about the impermanence and volatility of its discussions was an extremely rare event. The unified creative force couldn't be stopped. It had taken a mind of its own. Eventually calls were made to make this game a reality, and riding on nothing but the sheer momentum of a single concept page, the collective hive mind of A decided to actually do it. A development forum was created
Yeah, there's another cool thing that A has been making. It's like covers of some anime OSTs that they release from time to time, and I forgot the name of the channel, but it has the gay F slur in it, so I don't think I can share it, but there's some pretty good stuff in there.
Ideas to give this project a sense of coherency, but the floodgates were already opened. This unabashed collective ushered in a no-holds-bar, bare-fisted Royal Rumble cage match of ideas that battled it out on the open forum. Some took shape and evolved, and some were shot down almost as quickly as they were born. Plot paths, locations, character quirks, character backstories, music, and foley, everything was discussed. Everything was open game, whether suggestions were actually serious or not.
Do you think she looks more Ada Ara ara. Or oh. Ara 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 ara.
The platform soon became a very different kind of cesspool, one of raw creativity and disorganized ideas. Yet somehow, through all this madness, the girls were able to gain a semblance of personality and even get names. Rin, Lily, Shizune, Hanako, and Emi complete with their kanji spelling. However, due to this being decided by the collective energy of weeboos alone with little understanding of the actual Japanese language, there were some names like Iwanko that slipped through the cracks, which isn't actually a Japanese name. The setting would, unsurprisingly, be some kind of Japanese high school that specializes on disabled students, and unbeknownst to the fan that originally colored the page, they would have already had one of the biggest influence in the visual designs, as the color schemes for the school uniforms and the girls would remain the same until the game's release. Eventually, though,
Shizune's hair
as
got
expected,
darker.
the hype would start to die and the momentum would slow. The fickle interest of anonymous users would quickly evaporate, as they would soon go back to doing exactly what they were doing before, leaving the few remaining stragglers to pick up the pieces that resulted from this chaotic stream of events as they tried to figure out, so, where the hell do we go from here? It's April 2007, 4 months since the original thread post. Any momentum that it originally had almost completely gone. There's infighting about whether it still should be an open project that the community can always contribute to, or a closed project worked on by a dedicated team. Whatever
Spoilers.
the case, any progress
became
has
closed.
almost come to a screeching halt, and the project is in real danger of dying a slow death. In comes a man by the name of Cameron O'Neill, who went by Crud online, and who I was lucky enough to interview for this video project. He had experience organising online projects, from working as a fan subber on shows like Higurashi, and was basically put in charge of organising a new development forum from scratch with the handful of remaining devs who were still interested in pursuing the project. The new ragtag team was formed. Crud was in charge of writing Hanako's story, 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙖𝙞 was in charge of writing Shizune's, Aura for Rin, another writer for Lily's story, and Hive Mind agreed to write Emi's path. The team also had people working on character and background art, as well as an overall director who would start to learn how to use Ren'Py, a fairly well-known visual novel engine. Everyone in this core team was given their job and dedicated roles for the project, thus cementing the birth of 4 Leaf Studios, in reference to the 4chan logo that all this originated from. Most amateur teams start off with a small project. In visual novels, smaller projects can be around a few hours of playtime. So, with a collective team experience of exactly 0 when it comes to writing, drawing, or producing any visual novel content, they all agreed on a decision that I imagine went something along the lines of this. Alright chaps, now I know none of us have any experience making visual novels and we're a complete group of independent strangers with no concrete hierarchy with our team, but how do you chaps feel about making a full-length, multiple-path, 30-hour plus visual novel on our first attempt?
No, of course.
That sounds doable.
Come on, we can do that. We can definitely
What
do
can
that.
possibly go wrong?
Everything.
Everything. Everything you could possibly imagine went wrong. At the end of 2007, the team
I called
initially
it.
thought the game would be finished in around 2009. Little did they know that they would be signing up for roughly 5 years of development hell. The plan was to make a full visual novel right from the get-go, and with the collective inexperience they had, they blindly charged forward, haphazardly assembling text and pictures to be assembled in order to create the first playable version of the game. Many of the side characters were created early on, and the main cast started gaining more personality, which became the basis for the final game, and eventually the first alpha version of the game is done, which is codenamed Grid 1. This was actually leaked onto 4chan, reigniting the interest in the project, allowing them to add Nico Amafi as the game's composer and Delta, who would help customize the game's engine and UI. But it soon became clear that this project was the ultimate Chekhov's gun, as even with a smaller team, there were still so many ideas floating around with no one really knowing where they should go. Sometimes it felt like everyone was working on a different game, leading to this weird Frankenstein-like project of different parts, and half the fun was just trying to see where everything could go. They soon realized that all the work they'd done would lead to disastrous results further down the line unless everything was scrapped and the writing work start all over again. Dejected, the team try to salvage what they can and craft the basic structure of the whole game. Act 1, the first chapter of the game, would be shared between all paths and written in collaboration between all the writers until it splits off on the last day, so they all decide to rewrite Act 1 together and then everyone moves on to their individual story paths. That makes sense, right? Sounds like a way better approach, and things seem to be going way more smooth. Wrong. Later on, Aura realized that things could be better.
Yeah, it's right. A different person for each route would make it so jarring in between paths. That would be way too much. Because like most visual novels only have one writer, but if they decided to have multiple different people, yeah, I can definitely see how
and restructure
how obvious
the
it
whole
would be.
things by themselves. This would mark the beginning of the third.
Also, just like, you know, if someone was actually like a competent writer, only one of those routes would stand out compared to
rewrite
the
of Act
rest.
1.
But
Soon the project would lose its character artists and the main writer for Lily's stories, so
we'll see
new
what
members
happens.
needed to be found. This would be the first instance of many of the staff coming and going on the project. A new writer, Tsuriko, was found to handle Lily's story, but throughout the next few months, the dev team went through a bunch of artists who would join, but then quit soon after for their own reasons. After 8 months, the
Jesus.
project didn't even have a single background image finished, and there was a clearly massive issue of a complete lack of character artists as well. Despite this, through sheer blind faith that a visual novel without any visuals was a problem that was probably going to be fixed down the line, the team pressed on. Writers finished their drafts for their story paths, the engine started looking something not too far removed from the final product, a group of editors was brought in, and in spring of 2008, their faith was rewarded, as a ragtag group of artists came aboard to work on the character and CG art for the game. However, one massive aspect of every visual novel is of course the background art, and unfortunately they still had 0 background artists. Background art takes a ridiculous amount of work to produce and a very specialized skill
yeah,
set.
and they'd have to
So
draw
fix
like,
this, the team went
because like
back
background art for visual novels have like multiple day and night cycles. So like if they drew a single, let me go back a little bit here. Like so if they draw like a single scene like this, they'd have to draw like a night version, an afternoon version, sometimes maybe even like a seasonal version. Like sometimes like some of them would have snow, some of them would have rain, you know, and all of that. So it's definitely a lot of
ridiculous amount
work.
of work to produce and a very specialized skill set. So to fix
And that's
this,
only
the
for
team
one.
went back to their roots and asked the community for help.
And there's
For
usually
the
at
various
least, like,
settings of the visual novel, the team would ask
10 to
people submit
15,
photos, which would be put
possibly
through a
even
filter
more.
to change the aesthetic to be a bit more anime-esque. A user named Ujovi would contribute a great deal, but coincidentally, Aura and Crud actually visited Japan and were conveniently using some of the pictures for the game's backgrounds. As you can imagine, most of the images were taken in places across Japan, but the high school where everything was set in was taken in the very Japanese high school of Brown's University in Rhode Island. Unfortunately, the rotating doors of workers coming and going wouldn't
Yeah,
stop.
they did eventually like go the easier route of like taking pictures and just applying filters to them.
According to Cameron, working on the project very much felt like it could drop on a day-to-day basis. Remember, during the entire duration of the project, not a single person was getting paid, and there was nothing keeping people on this project other than their own drive to want to finish it. After producing some music, Nicole quits out of boredom, while the original background artist and director are fired from 4 Leaf Studios. But enough of all
Damn,
that bad
who
news,
fired
because
them?
finally, for some good news,
Who
near
fired
the end
them?
of 2008, the entire script for the game was finally done, and after reviewing it all, it was decreed
Trash.
that it sucks. It still read like a weird, stitched together mess of earlier ideas. But this is fine, no problem, minor inconvenience. Because on the bright side, and I say bright with an overcast, poo brown covered filtered kind of bright, the art production was way behind schedule anyway, so they had time to rewrite everything in Act 1
Fix it in
from
post.
scratch.
That's what they're
Again.
doing.
Learning from their mistakes and better experiences, the team was able to produce a much better final script that ended up being the actual one used for the game. Plus, Blue123 came on board and started composing some additional background music for the game as well. It's interesting because while Act 1 technically had a 2-year-long development cycle, everything in the final product was actually done in a little over half a year. Only the original coding stayed consistent from the beginning, and some earlier developed music was carried over. About 2 years after the first posting on 4chan, writes, rewrites, rewrites, members joining and leaving, and the project teetering
The
on
first
death the
rewrite was
entire
bad.
time, Act 1 was finally finished and released to the
I
public.
don't know if there was
in
multiple
April
games, but
2009.
you know, even though if I didn't get to finish it, it
Act
was
1
still kind of
only meant
bad.
to be a litmus test, and while some of the devs originally thought that it would only be shared or talked about on message boards that inspired this madness, it ended up generating a significant amount of attention online that blew everyone's expectations away and gave the team a dub they thoroughly deserved. And at this point, probably needed. There were even people online willing to come on board to translate the game to dozens of different languages: Japanese, Hungarian, Russian, German, and since then even way more languages by various different groups. More significantly, they managed to add a substantial element in their game in the form of animated openings. As an animator, Mike Inell offered his services to the group, which they accepted. It took weeks for the devs just to go through.
Don't look up Mike
and
Inell if you're at work, by the way.
What worked and what they could improve on, but it became clear that they were on the right track. With all that attention came a rise in ambition. The team had learned, leveled up, and knew they could do better, and so they made the hard decision to go back and rework significant parts of the script from various angles. As you can imagine, reworking and scrapping huge parts of the game script was not an easy thing to do. But at this point, it wasn't something they weren't already used to. In early 2010, another artist was asked to join because unfortunately, the team soon realized that they didn't actually have enough people to produce the large amounts of art they would need for the final game. In fact, you could argue that the whole team was severely undermanned to deal with the sheer amount of work that needed to be done. However, adding any more people to organize and manage...
Yeah, like it would be better to like have like a dedicated team of people just for backgrounds, and then and that would be like maybe 3, maybe 4 people, sometimes maybe more. And then for the sprites, which would be separate from the CG art, you'd have, you know, maybe 1 or 2 people doing that. And then at least that's how I would do it, you know. And then for CG, you'd have 1 central artist taking care of that, and then someone else to like assist them, maybe even a 3rd person to help the assisting. But and that's a lot of people just for art.
It made things detrimental in a kind of different way. So they decided to carry on steadily with the people they had, even though production was still plagued with communication issues between all of the departments, and there was still so much artwork that needed to be finished. Despite all of the support, the team was starting to get weary, but they didn't stop. Pretty much everyone on the core team had burnout at one point and had to take an extended break from the project, but miraculously, everyone stayed on board. After constant setbacks, for the first time in a while, they could actually see the ending in sight. From summer 2010 onwards, it was no longer a matter of if this game was ever going to come out, but just a matter of when. With rejuvenated motivation, a strong sense of hope, and a better idea of what the fuck they were actually doing, they knuckled down and cracked on. And after their years of turmoil, a revolving door of writers, composers, artists, and other staff members through its entire development, on January 4th, 2012, exactly 5 years after the initial 4chan post, 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙩𝙖 Shoujo was released to the public.
Wait, was it in 2012? I guess I was younger then when I first read it, because I was
They did it.
Because like when I first heard of 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙩𝙖 Shoujo, it was still unreleased, like unfinished, and then I think I like waited for like another year before I was able to play it.
Actually did it.
I guess I was a little bit younger.
Amateur developers not only saw a full-length 30+ hour visual novel to completion, but somehow it was actually really good. The team were met with almost unanimous praise from fans and critics alike, moved many people, while also reaching a far larger audience than they ever intended or imagined. Mainstream gaming outlets talked about it. It got people who never played a single visual novel before try it out. It reached far beyond the little anime and visual novel boards on 4chan that it started on. Even Writer, the original artist that helped start all of this, wrote a post on a Japanese blog thanking the developers, expressing heartfelt gratitude for their combined efforts. To this day, 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙩𝙖 Shoujo remains a cult classic beloved by many.
It's pretty
Personally,
sweet.
I first heard about it like many other people. Seeing people talk about this eroge from 4chan revolving around dating disabled girls. And of course, hearing that, my curiosity was piqued as my gut reaction was, oh god. Let's see how big of a train wreck this is gonna be. And yes, while there were some eroge scenes in it, like so many other visual novels initially marketed as eroges that people realized were actually so much more than that, 𝙃𝙚𝙣𝙩𝙖 Shoujo was exactly that. What I was met with was not only a wholesome but inspiring story about a group of people who strive to push past misfortunes and hardships that life had given them. This isn't just the type of story that people enjoy, this was the type of story that could really change people's lives, teach them something about themselves and the relationships with people around them. And to me, seeing a story so powerful, so impactful, knowing the journey it took to get there is nothing short of a miracle. Because I think the most impressive thing was the reaction from 4chan itself. 4chan, the board of hardened degenerates, the community with some of the most unfiltered,
I think they were the only ones that didn't like it.
people on the internet had their hearts moved. This was the game that taught 4chan how to feel. It was the game that broke 4chan itself.
I downloaded the game for fat material. Now I'm sobbing up looking back on the good.
Okay, never mind.
I don't even like hentai.
It's like the only post I saw from 4chan after the game release was something about like wishing there was more degenerate garbage in it, but I guess that was not representative of how they felt.
I got a life.
My bad.
I'm crying about it.
You fucking broken me, V. Eat shit.
Guys, I'm seriously crying fucking bitch tears right now like you wouldn't believe. I'm not even at the end yet. Fuck 4 Leaf Studios for doing this to me, for making me feel these feels.
Help me. I think you've broke my boners.
For fuck's sake, I haven't stopped thinking about this game for 2 days straight and this shit isn't helping! Fuck!
I was prepared to fap, but I wasn't prepared to feel.
𝙃𝙚 Shoujo is still free to this day, available for download to anyone who visits the site, and if you haven't done so already, I highly recommend you give it a shot, even if visual novels aren't usually your thing. I wanted to make this video...
There was some pretty good tracks in the OST too, so I might grab the OST.
Not just to fill in the gaps of the story for those who
I'll
are
have to see
curious,
if I can
also
still
to
get it
highlight
though.
this game to those who might not even be aware of its existence. At a time where visual novels are probably more popular now than they've ever been, 𝙃𝙚 Shoujo continues to be possibly one of the most influential and downright inspirational stories that I feel not enough people talk about these days. Because
That's
as great
crazy.
as the story of the game is, I think the story that came to pass for this game to be made...
I'd say that it was like the one that like opened the doors for Western devs, especially indie devs, to try and make their own stuff, but you know where that went. In the Steam nudity tag.
Many of the devs have gone on to work on more official industry projects like serialized books. The artists have gone on to work on many other official visual novel projects. Mike
Wait, Rames was part of... Okay.
Quite a name for himself as an animator, and
I only knew Mike Inell, but I guess Rames worked on 𝙃𝙚 Shoujo too. That's cool. I really like Wii's art.
O'Neill even now is in the process of working on a visual novel as we speak, which all shows that despite their collective inexperience, there was real talent in this team. And as improbable as it was for this many talented strangers to be able to congregate and persevere for this one project, it would be the last time. This is the first and only project 4 Leaf Studio have publicly stated that they'll ever make. And while there's a chance certain members will work together in future projects, the collaboration of this core team of talented people has, to this day, remained a one-off. And that's why...
I guess Gabby was there too. Let me see. Gabby, Cam, Rames. Yeah, okay.
Team of talented people has to this day remained a
I don't know if that
one-off.
was the...
And
I don't know if
why,
that's the
to
same
me,
Gabby that
𝙃𝙚
I'm
Shoujo
following on
stands
Twitter
as a
though.
unique anomaly of its time we may never see again. I've seen school projects crumble for less. This was a project made by a team with no experience, no budget, no guarantee their work would ever be seen.
And it was a free
Fueled
game
by
too,
pure
so they
passion,
got
but it
nothing
wasn't
out of
just
that
passion
except...
that got this project made. This game was teetering on a knife's edge for most of its development. From conception to completion, so many unlikely things needed to come together, so many serendipitous events needed to happen, so many stars needed to align for this thing to not only come to fruition, but be as incredible as it was. And that is the miracle story of 𝙃𝙚 Shoujo.
I still remember how goofy that 3D model looked like. I mean, you guys could see it, like the way it raised its arms to wave. I mean, Mike and Elle's work back then was still pretty crazy, but damn.
So many stars needed to align for this.
I didn't think it was that much of a revolving door. Cool. Hey, there you go. Finishing my sentence, like, they worked on the game for free, and they released the game for free. So they literally got nothing out of it except just a particular set of skills, I guess, that they learned from making it. Like, I guess now, Rames, for example, is in Japan, working as an illustrator for I think a light novel, and I think they're also just doing some other like freelance stuff as well. So they're doing pretty well. Mike and Elle is also another just professional artist now who's also just working on a bunch of stuff. But yeah, pretty sure a bunch of the people in the credits got pretty far after the game. So, you know, they got some cool things out of that, despite working on it for so long and for free.